So this patriotic hymn, which is also known as America, became the first American national anthem in 1831, before they adopted the Star Spangled Banner. So this was our first national anthem. So here's the story behind it. The words were written by a Baptist clergyman, Samuel Francis Smith. In those days, they all had three names, right? So, and for the melody, he used the music of the British national anthem, God Save the King. So you can imagine why people would have some, hey, let's get a different one. Smith wrote the verses in 1831, and they were first used for a children's 4th of July celebration in Boston in 1832. So he wrote the verses while he was still a theological student, after his friend, the renowned hymn composer Lowell Mason, asked him to translate or adapt the lyrics of some German school books. So one melody to a German patriotic hymn in particular caught his attention, and instead of translating it, he decided to write an American patriotic hymn. So he sat down, and in 30 minutes he had written this song to go along with this tune. He had no idea that the melody's association with the British national anthem. So he says. But we have to take his word for it, because, right? You just have to. It makes a better story. So he had never heard God Save the King. So Smith did not stop writing in his day. He wrote 150 other hymns. And in 1843, he teamed up with another guy, and he actually wrote a Baptist hymn called the Psalms. So we've got 4 verses to this. Anything I'm forgetting? We good? Okay, so 4 verses. Let's try singing all 4. See how that works out. This next one is God Bless America. Irvin Berlin came up with God Bless America in 1918 while he was serving in an army camp in New York. It was intended for military review called Yip Yap Yap Hank. Yip Yap Yap Hank. That was the name of the base. But he decided not to use the song. He cut it from the score and stashed it away. 2 decades later, he saw new hope in the old tune, and he said, I had to make 1 or 2 changes in the lyrics, and in turn led me to a slight change and improvement in the melody. One line in particular, the original ran, stand beside her and guide her to the right with a light from above. All right. In 1918, the phrase "to the right" had no political significance as it has now. So, for obvious reasons, he decided to change "through the night" with a light from above. And pleased with the revamped song, he searched for the right singer to introduce it. So, how many of you remember Kate Smith? Okay, that's who we picked. Kate Smith was a vaudeville singer who'd entertained World War I troops when she was 8 years old and gone on to host her own CBS radio show with millions of devoted listeners. So on November 11th, 1938, Smith sang for the first time, "God Bless America," as part of her Armistice Day broadcast. And that was the anniversary of the end of World War I. Within days, it was being hailed as the new national anthem. Sheet music flew off the shelves. Smith was booked for personal appearances, including Major League Baseball games and the 1939 World's Fair. School bands played the song relentlessly without any hype or plug-in, and Berlin's anthem became a sensation. In 1940, both the Republican and the Democratic parties adopted the song as their theme. So I guess we're catching on, right? Realizing that it would look improper to collect royalties on a patriotic ode, Irving Berlin established a trust, the God Bless America Fund, which distributed all the proceeds to the Boys and Girl Scouts of America. Irving Berlin lived to the age of 101, and he passed away in 1989. Through his incredible legacy of songs ranged from "Putting on the Ritz" to "Always" to "White Christmas," but "God Bless America" remained his most personal achievement. So, this one you're going to have to do from memory because it's not in the book. But hopefully you can. You know, it goes kind of like, "While the storm clouds gather, far across the sea, right? Let us swear allegiance to a land that's free." Now you can remember, you'll pick it up. All right, so sing it out with me, and we'll try and not mess it up.
Let us all be
so America the Beautiful. Remember that one? 33-year-old Kathleen Bates was a professor at Wesleyan and had traveled west to teach a summer course in Colorado Springs. Bates and the other professionals decided to celebrate the close of the session by an expedition to the top of Pikes Peak. In 1893, they made the ascent by prairie wagon. Ouch. Ouch. At the top, Bates later wrote, she was inspired by the sea-like expanse of fertile country. Under those ample skies, the opening lines of the hymn floated into her mind. She finished writing America the Beautiful before leaving Colorado Springs, but didn't think to publish it until 2 years later. The poem was first printed in a weekly newspaper called The Congressionalists on July 4th, 1895. So patriotic words were soon set to music by composer S.A. Ward. Celebrating country love and the patriot dream, the song resonated with Americans from all walks of life and became enormously popular. She revised some of the lyrics in 1904, and by that time had given hundreds, perhaps thousands of free permissions for America the Beautiful to appear in church hymnals, Sunday school songbooks, secular songbooks, poetry readers, civic readers, patriotic prose and poetry, and in countless periodicals. As you can see, peas were big in those days. Okay, so this one is in your hymnal. It's 599. And there's 4 verses, so 599. But I got a little story behind this one too. I will sing the wonder story. The words of this frequently sung hymn were written by F.H. Rowley and the music by Peter Bilton. And he quotes, he says, I was minister of the First Baptist Church in Port Adams, Massachusetts in 1886. This is what Rowley wrote. The church and community were experiencing a period of unusual interest in religious matters, and I was assisted by a remarkable young singer by the name of Peter Bilton. One night, after the close of the service, he said, why don't you write a hymn for me to set to music? During the night, these verses came to me. The original poem began, can't you sing the wonder story? But when the song was first published by Ira Sankey in 1887, the phrase was changed to, I will sing the wonder story. Bill Horn was born in Illinois in 1861, shortly after his father was killed in the Civil War. He was converted at 20 under D.L. Moody's preaching, and he acquired musical training and launched a career in evangelism, which was to make him world famous. Sweet Peace, the Gifts of God's Love, is another of his many compositions, and he died in Los Angeles in 1936. Feeling the need of a portable organ for use in street meetings, jail services, and similar gospel endeavors, which Bill Horn was involved in, he designed a small foldable organ. It weighed just 16 pounds and started its manufacture in 1887. At the height of the Bill Horn Brother Organ Company, the Bill Horn organs had won gold medals at 6 world expeditions and were used on battleships, in army camps and rescue missions and hospitals, and, according to the words I looked up, on far-flung missions trips. So that's maybe that's where the far-flung missions trips came from. I don't know. But this is a great old one called I Will Sing the Wonder Story. There's 4 verses. Let's try singing this together. How many of you remember that one? Oh yeah. How about this next one called Send the Light? That's 534, if you want a head start on that. Charles Hutchison Gabriel was born in 1856 in Wilton, Iowa, and raised on a farm. As a boy, Gabriel taught himself to play a small reed organ. Wondered if it was a bill horn, huh? He followed in his father's footsteps and led singing schools by the age of 16. In 1890, he was called to Grace Methodist Episcopal Church in San Francisco as a music director. And while serving in this church, he wrote, Send the Light. When the Sunday school superintendent asked for a missionary hymn for Easter Sunday, the hymn was first sung March 6, 1890, with great enthusiasm. A visiting missionary heard the song and loved it so much that he carried it back east with him, and the hymn became immediately popular. The text is believed to be based on Acts 16, when Paul had the vision of the man of Macedonia asking for help and to please send the light. He also believed to have written the hymn, How Can It Be? And as a young and published under one of his pseudonyms, pseudonyms, whatever, Charles Marsh. So maybe he was part of the witness protection program. He had other names. So we've got 3 verses to Send the Light, number 534. Y'all made it, that's good. Now, this next one's number 298. 298. Satisfied, all my life long I have panted. That is the name of this hymn. Pretty long name, isn't it? It's like a good old Catholic church. They like to name them long. That's what this says. Okay, so how many of you ever heard Satisfied, all my life long I have panted? Okay, a couple. Yeah. All right. These words were written by Clara Williams in 1875. So we're struggling to get out of the 1800s this year. Right? As a young woman, she was a school teacher. She suffered a heart attack. She suffered an attack of tuberculosis, but fully recovered from it and for a number of years engaged in evangelistic work in several north central states. So this was an impressive woman back in 1875. It was at that time, as Claire was helping in an evangelistic meeting, that the song leader asked her to compose a hymn. That evening, she penned the words to this hymn, and in the morning, Ralph Hudson, the song leader, put it to music. In 1895, she married the Reverend W.H. Williams, a Wesleyan minister, Methodist minister, and until his death 30 years later, labored with him in serving in churches in New York, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. That's Sam's. Sam's got an alarm going on here. Hopefully he's okay. All right, so this one, there's 3 verses too, and it's a really nice melody. So sing it on out when you figure it out. So, you know, we don't have to feed on the husks around us tonight, you know, but that's, I think, more a reference to the prodigal son story, where he's off feeding the pigs and, you know, they're eating better than he is. But we will have some rhymes tonight with some goodies inside of them. Okay, this next one's 522. 522. Edwin Othello Excel. Yeah. Canton, Ohio. Lived from 1851 to 1921. While he often provided tunes for lyrics by different writers, such as Johnson Oatman's Count Your Blessings and J. Atchison's There's a Stranger at the Door and In the Shadow of Wings, among others, he published a well-known song for which he produced both words and music, but not many others that he wrote the words to. So this is Since I Have Been Redeemed. It's I have a song I love to sing, Since I Have Been Redeemed. How many of you have heard this one? Okay, we got a lot more, so this one's still floating around. All right, there's 4 verses there. right. This next one's 345. We're down to the 300s now. Written by a pharmacist. That matters, right? Charles Austin Miles was trained to be a pharmacist. But once he began writing gospel songs, he gave up on that pharmacy stuff. Right? And he devoted his career to full-time sacred music writing. How about that? As well as writing many songs for himself, he served as editor of Paul Mac Publishers for decades, even after his merger with Road Heber Company. Among Miles' contributions to our hymn books are A New Name in Glory, Dwelling in Beulah Land, If Jesus Goes With Me, and In the Garden. So we're going to sing another one of his a little later. As well as the music for Still Sweeter Every Day, and words and music to a little chorus called Wide, Wide as the Ocean. Okay, so we've got 345, and there happens to be 3 verses to this one.
Fred.
This next one's a little slow. Great is thy faithfulness. How many of you have this one as your favorite? Okay, a couple of you. I figured we might get a couple. Thomas Obadiah Chisholm had a difficult early adult life. His health was so fragile that that scared the life right out of him. His health was so fragile, there were periods of time he was confined to bed, unable to work. Between bouts of illness, he would have to push himself to put in extra hours in various jobs in order just to make ends meet. After coming to Christ at age 27, Thomas found great comfort in the Scriptures and in the fact that God was faithful to be his strength in times of illness and weakness, and to provide his needs. Lamentations 3:22-23 was one of his favorite scriptures, and that says, "It is of the Lord's mercies that we are not consumed, because his compassions fail not. They are new every morning. Great is thy faithfulness." While away from home on a missions trip, Thomas often wrote to one of his good friends, William Runyon, a relatively unknown musician. Several poems were exchanged in these letters, and Runyon found one of William's poems so moving that he decided to compose a musical score to accompany the lyrics. That's Great is Thy Faithfulness. It was first published in 1923. For several years, the hymn got very little recognition until it was discovered by a Moody Bible Institute professor who loved it so much and requested it sung so often at chapel services that the song became the unofficial theme song of the college. It was not until 1945 when George Beverly Shea began to sing Great is Thy Faithfulness at the Billy Graham Evangelistic Crusades that the hymn was heard around the world. Sir Thomas Chisholm died in 1960 at the age of 94. And during his lifetime, he wrote more than 1,200 poems and hymns, including two you might remember, Ode to Be Like Jesus and Living for Jesus. So this one is 109, I forgot to tell you up front. 109, and there's 3 verses, so give me a chance to find it. Should be somewhere between 108 and 110. Now I'm tempted to skip this next one, but I was going to just say, are you guys good with this simple little melody? What do you think? Sweeter than the rose.
There's no words in the book.
There's no words in the book. So it goes, but you're all into learning stuff, right? Sweeter than the rose that blooms in the spring, brighter than the stars that shine in their ring, purer than the snow which falleth from above, dearer than all these, O Lord, thou art in love. O Lord of life and Lord of love, teach thy ways unto me. Let me more of thy beauty see. Ever in thy presence let me be. Okay, just sing that a couple times. That's all. So, but it's a nice little melody. So the story behind this one is, when we were growing up here at this church, back in the youth group, somebody at a camp or somewhere on the way, we'd sit around the campfire and somebody knew this. And we'd sing this a cappella, right? Because nobody had any music to it. So all these years later, I still haven't found anybody that knew it or knew anything of it. So it's one of those, what do you call them when you carry on an audible tradition. So fortunately, somebody came along in the family that could figure out music. So I said, Andrew, here it is, so write it down. So he wrote it down. So that's the only reason we have a tune here, okay? But so see if you can pick it up. And if not, we'll forgive you. It's nice once you just listen along, and then next time we do it, you'll know a little bit better. Okay? Some people had called it Psalm 151 because they kind of got a flavor of one of the Psalms. So we'll pick that up another time. We can try it again. So we only got two more. And I'll remember to give you the page number. 269. So there. 269. You got your head start. In the garden. You all have to know this one. In the garden, 269. Here's the account of how this beautiful hymn was written. One day, in 1912, Austin Miles was seated in his darkroom where he kept his photographic equipment and organ. So everybody keeps their photographic equipment in the same room with their organ in the darkroom, right? That's how it works. On that day, he opened his Bible to his favorite chapter, John 20. Whether by chance for inspiration or maybe some photographic chemical smells. He read it, and that day he seemed to be in a little bit of a trance, and he caught part of a scene. He felt he became a silent witness to that dramatic moment in Mary's life when he knelt before her Lord and cried, Rabboni. And on the story unfolded in his mind. As the scenes in the chapter finished, he quickly wrote the poem down on paper exactly as it was, exactly as we sing it today. And then later that evening he wrote the music. Okay, so how it all happened, there you go. But it's a lovely song. There's 3 verses in the garden. Nothing implying about the last one. This is called The Wonder of It All. 142. 142. Throughout the 1950s, Billy Graham and his team had a profound impact on shaping and showcasing the Christian music of the day. Songs such as To God Be the Glory and Great Is Thy Faithfulness were popularized for the first time, and George Beverly Shea, by a wide margin, became America's best loved and most recorded gospel singer. And with the success of I'd Rather Have Jesus, he kept writing more songs. 142. You're still looking. 142. In 1955, when the Crusades and the Hour of Decision radio outreach. How many of you listened to the Hour of Decision radio outreach? We've got a few. Thanks God. Okay. At the height, Shea boarded the ocean liner SS United States en route to meetings in Scotland. A fellow passenger struck up a conversation and asked Shea about the typical program sequence at a Billy Graham crusade. Shea described how the meetings were conducted, but then he recalled, I found myself at a loss for words when I tried to describe the responses that usually accompany Mr. Graham's invitations to become a Christian. Turning to the other passenger, he exclaimed, what happens then never becomes commonplace, watching people by the hundreds come forward. Oh, if you could just see the wonder of it all. As he mused over the thought later that evening, Shea was inspired to rough out a melody and to write down the words of a song. In 8 years traveling with Billy Graham, he had truly seen amazing things. Yet, to Shea, the most remarkable was not the adulation, the fame, the immense public and media interest. Seeing men and women come to Christ was to him the wonder of it all. So there's 3 verses to this. Can you come up and have a word of prayer for, and it's the healthy food tonight. We got sandwiches, and watermelon, and then there's some other snacks. And as he's coming, it just happens to be his birthday today. So let's all sing him happy birthday. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, Mother, my friend. Happy birthday to you.
I'm 81. That's a true stuff. When Mike said we're having the healthy food, I was thinking of steak and lobster.
Where are we going?
Shall we pray? Our Father and our God, we thank you again for this opportunity to come out to celebrate our Christian faith through song. Thank you for the great testimony of musicians in the past who have given us such wonderful music to stir our hearts and our very souls. that we may know the joy and the happiness of being one of God's children. And we thank you for all that have assembled here this evening to participate, for the musicians and for their talents. And now, Father God, as we now partake for the food that has been provided for us, we ask, Lord, that you'll bless it and may strengthen us that this coming week may live a life that's pleasing to you. So we pray all these things in Christ's name. Amen.
All right, so we've got all the fruits lined up out there. There are flyers for next month. Roland Zimmerman and his son are coming. Remember the guy that played the paper bag? Somebody might remember that? So we'll have a lot of this bluegrass gospel. But so if you can make it out next month, or you can grab some of those flyers and pass them out to the establishments in the community, that would be appreciated.